Thanks, everybody. I'd like to introduce Emily de la Pena, the founder of Coding Kids and Advanced Queensland's Community Digital Champion, developing the next generation of coders, innovators and change makers up in Queensland. A civil engineer, Emily now sharing her passion for science, technology, engineering, arts and mathematics through Coding Kids, and working with directly with children to become technology creators, and also working to empower teachers and librarians to integrate the new digital technology subjects into their classrooms. So thank you, Emily.
Thanks, Nick. Hi everyone, I'm Emily. I'm the founder of Coding Kids, and we're now in over 20 schools around Queensland teaching over 400 students. So how did I get here? I'm not a teacher. I'm not even a programmer. So let me start from the beginning. So in 2015, I started volunteering with Coder Dojo. It's a non-profit run by volunteers delivering free children's coding workshops at libraries around Brisbane. And I was there and I could see that there was so much fun. All these kids were getting really into it. And I had all these ideas of how I wanted to make improvements in how we run Coder Dojo. But already we're running on volunteers, volunteering their free time. It's run for free. So it's really hard to scale and improve on free. So I decided, January 2016, I started cold calling and I started my first 2 coding clubs at 2 schools with 50 students. And now, a year and a half later, we're at over 20 schools, over 400 students, and we're touring regional Queensland. So we're going out to Longreach, Mount Isa, Cairns, Bundaberg, Rockhampton, lots of regional areas, training the trainers, kickstarting programs in those centres so that the teachers, librarians, parents can continue with the program. So it's been an exciting place, and in 18 months we've managed to do this. But how did we get to do this so quickly? It has a lot to do with the changing environment. So I think a few people have already mentioned, we've got a few new subjects. So in the primary school area, we've got 2 new subjects, design and technologies and digital technologies. So we started working with schools, working with teachers, trying to make sense of what does this new technology subject mean and what kind of class activities can we start delivering for it. So what's been happening in Queensland? So we started off in 2016 with 17 trial primary schools who were starting to just have a go with the new technology subjects. So their responsibilities were just to experiment and then to share their experiences with all the other schools, in particular in their clusters. And then in 2017, all Queensland schools now need to start having a go with the digital technology subject and getting ready for full implementation by 2020. So this has been really interesting to see in Queensland, especially with the schools that we're working with. So at the moment with Coding Kids, we deliver extracurricular workshops for children. So they're after-school coding clubs and school holiday coding programs. So we started off with Scratch in primary school, and then as students start to get familiar with Scratch, we started to move them onto Python for the year 5 and 6 students. And this is our 4th term of running our Python program, so we've had a few iterations of improving every term. So we experiment with the kids, see how they respond to how we explore the different topics and projects. And so from this space of being extracurricular, we started to see, well, how can we start matching it up with a digital technologies curriculum? So we started working with a couple of teachers on how to do that. So we decided, okay, we'll work on building these 2 projects, one that looks at digital technologies and science for year 5 and digital technologies and English for year 6. So we're doing all sorts of projects for different year levels and different subject areas. So we're looking at integrating digital technologies into all the other subjects with different projects using, Scratch, Scratch Junior, Makey, things like that. but I'll go through the Python projects obviously here. Okay, so what we did was a solar system quiz for the Year 5 students and a text adventure game for digital technologies and English for Year 6. So let's have a look at that. Now, this is pretty interesting because in some schools we get to use idle and other schools we can't access, we can't download Python, so we end up having to use Trinket. So I'll show you what we end up doing with Trinket, and I'll talk a bit about that experience as well. So let's have a look at our space game. So we do a solar system quiz, and it's quite simple. So on the left, oh, why is that not showing? Let's have a look. Oh, I'm not sure why that's not working. No, it's not showing. Okay. Sorry about this, folks. Okay. And it's still. Okay. So our solar system quiz. Let's have a play, shall we? So what's your name? Emily? Okay, what's the fourth planet from the sun? Let's have a guess. Is it Mars? Correct. Which planet has visible rings? Let's see what happens if I get this wrong. Oh, sorry. The correct answer is Saturn. And then what is a large space rock called? Let's see. Asteroid. Correct. You've got 2 out of 3 questions right. So this is a fun little solar system quiz that we built with Python using Trinket, because in some of our schools, this is what we have to work with. So you can see here it's quite simple. We start looking at, how do we input from a question? How do we store it into a variable? We can start to look at how we keep score, and we can start to use parallels with Scratch because our students end up going from Scratch onto Python, and there's a lot of similarities between the two. For example, with scorekeeping, it's the same sort of steps. So you can start to go back to what they already know from using score as a variable in Scratch. And then they start to learn a few extra things. What happens when we type in Saturn with a capital S versus lowercase. So we start playing with a few extra things with Python. So the students get to write their own question and answers and play each other's games. The other project, so using digital technologies in English, is looking at a text adventure game. Let's have a look at this one. Okay, so what's your name, adventurer? So let's have a go. Emily? So they start to write their own story. So a text adventure game is not too different to the popular stories from the 90s, if you remember the choose your own adventure novels. So just like that, except this one's online. So it's super fun. You get to create your own imaginary worlds, imaginary quests and characters. So it's a really exciting place if you love that sort of storytelling. Okay, so you're in the forest. Do you want to step into the forest? Okay, yes. Right, so you head into the forest. You hear crows cawing in the distance. In front of you, you see a stone. On it is a sword and a bow. What weapon do you take? I might take a bow. Okay, the path ahead forks into. To your left, you hear a roar. To your right, the forest becomes much darker. Which path do you take? Let's follow the roar, shall we? Let's go to the left. Oh, you head left, ahead is a bear, you wield your bow, you have no arrows, you are eaten. Goodbye, Emily. So it's so much fun because they start off first with their story. So I always encourage them to start off with a story. Where does it go? Don't have too many options at the beginning, otherwise you might get confused with your if and else. So just something very simple, just a few options, because you can always make it bigger and bigger. And so there's a lot of freedom in terms of creativity in the storytelling. So it's quite a fun experience. Okay. So yes, we do sometimes have to use Trinket in some schools where we don't have access to downloading Python. So at this level, when it's still really, we're working with very simple programs, very simple concepts, it works pretty much. But there are some limitations when you start to get into more complex programming, but we never really head into that space. I would say personally, the main issue with using Trinket is it doesn't quite feel like you're programming because it still feels like you're playing a game on a website, and that's sort of the thing that we're trying to move away from. So interestingly, I just spoke to someone in the audience about another way that we can use a portable Python off a USB, and I think that might be our next step and have to step away from Trinket. But it's been a really good experience so far. This has been our 4th term of running Python programs, and it's been really good for us at this stage. Yep, so we're also travelling around regional Queensland. These are free workshops for teachers and librarians and parents, as well as children who want to come along, funded by state government. So it's been really good for the regional areas. So what's next for us? So we're really lucky in Brisbane because we've got the Pepper studio there. So we're working closely with them. We're delivering Python and so these Pepper robots, they use Choreograph and Python, and we've just started recently, so that's been a lot of fun. We're also working on microbit projects with the kids. It's really good because it's got built-in LEDs, so we can build fun games with that, but you can also extend it with the breadboards and things like that. Yep, looking towards a portable Python option for schools where we can't download Python. And then there's also that question of breadth versus depth. So that's something that we're also working with, like how much depth can we go at this level, especially at primary school. You know, it's still pretty good to chop and change and look at all the different applications that we can experience. What's been really interesting in this journey as well is that because we've come from the extracurricular space and we're heading more and assisting schools with implementation in school, is that for me personally, one thing that I really like with this full implementation in schools is that you get to see higher rates of girls getting involved when it's compulsory. So we went from having 25% girls in our workshops to 40% girls for the simple reason that we're delivering compulsory classes. So that's one thing that's really important in that space, because otherwise it's not just about girls not feeling, say, interested, but maybe perhaps perceptions that parents might have if it's an extracurricular activity, and the decision has to be made at home in the household between parents and children. What else? So what next? Like, I'd really love to continue this conversation with everyone here, see what people's experiences have been. A lot of what we've been doing has been experimental, but it's been pretty exciting because we just learn at every iteration, every term. We watch the students respond to different projects, different way that we explore and learn. Yeah, it's just, I guess because I've not come from an education background, it's just been a lot of experimentation and it's been really fun. Yeah, so any questions? And then feel free to contact me. I'm on social media. I blog a lot.
Thank you very much, Emily. And it's good to get the primary school perspective as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we have any questions for primary school level or the Queensland experience.
Hi, Emily. So of the game, the question asking game, I saw a lot of kind of repetition in that.
Yep.
How much of that was code that you'd provided, and how much of that was code that you kind of taught?
Sure.
How did that evolve to what we saw? Is my question.
Yeah. So by the time they were building these sorts of projects, they've already done one term. So what I'm finding in at primary school level is that you spend one term doing just lots of really little activities. So they're not even building like games yet. And that's where that sort of magical bridge is between, oh, let's learn just what simple things are, like just print or input or saving to a variable in like little activities, culminating to, here's a project. Okay, so there's all these tools that we've already learnt. Let's talk about it. So we start off building out the structure in terms of comments. So what's all the different steps that we need to do? And then we fill out the comments with the actual code of, okay, well, what do we need to do to actually then code that? So I guess you didn't see that bit beforehand. Yeah. So, yeah.
Any further questions?
In terms of that little space game, does that take a whole term in terms of the amount of time you spend on it? Is that one afternoon a week? Is it one lesson during the week?
So we do 1 hour a week for the term, but generally lasts 8 or 9 weeks. Yep. So for that, so it'll take about 2 or 3 weeks of like building out a structure, doing things that are building out the structure, but then the kids will do their own questions and then they start adding their own features. So some kids will start to, the fast kids, they'll start building out a dictionary with the question and answers and then randomly selecting the question to do that. So you can see that kids will start, we get to a minimum point together and then the projects will diverge to what the kids feel like doing.
Hi, great talk. I would like to ask, what are the key elements for you to keep the kids engaged throughout the whole session? Because I'm currently teaching some of the school kids, and it's really hard to get their attention and really hard to get keep them engaged into the task. Like, what is your recommendation? What are the key elements?
The key is to show that the end product first. So first we talk about, like, we'll do a demo of the project and then we get them to each have a go in playing it, and then we talk about it. We talk about, what do you think we need to do to build that? What are some extra features, or how would you personalize your project? Because I encourage them to always personalize a project. Like, the structure will be similar, the minimum point will be similar, but it's about them engaging in a way that suits their personality and interests. So admittedly, if it's, when you look at the solar system quiz versus the text adventure one, the solar system, if it's set within a unit, which is, learning about the solar system, well then they can research their own questions and answers, and then that'll be their own contextually. But say the text adventure one, you can see with that one, it's so creative. You could, they love storytelling. They're already storytellers. So, whether you've got some imaginary Candyland and you're a unicorn, going on an adventure, or you're in a forest and you come across trolls and ogres and stuff, when your personality is embedded in the project, that's it. So it's project and context first, and then all that logic and engine underneath, that's almost secondary. But it's hard when you're trying to fit it into like a solar system unit, and it's like, okay, well, we're all going to learn about planets and stars right now. And so I think that's where the struggle is. The more creativity, the more personalization, that's where you can really hook them in. Yeah.
Thanks.
Hi. The regional stuff you've been doing is amazing. You go out there and run workshops and
Yeah.
support the teachers. How do you continue that support and engagement unless you spend a term in Mount Isa?
Yeah, so we can only do 2-3 days. So for example, next week, my team, like two others plus myself, we're going to be in Kingaroy for 3 days. So that's as much as the grant money can cover, but we spend a lot of time with them during our time there, and then afterwards we'll continue, maintain contact, see how they're going, see if they want, because, you know, the internet is full of free resources, but what a lot of these people need is just someone to sort it and give them exactly what they need, when they need it. And so for those contacts we have afterwards, they're lucky to have that, so I hope they make the most of it. But also, I guess as part of the grant funding, it's compulsory to report on the impacts afterwards. So before we engage with them, we talk about that commitment, because I want to keep my end of the bargain. Yeah.
So I'm going to sneak in a question of my own along those lines. So you had the relationship with the Queensland government, and I was curious how that came about. And
sure.
Yeah.
I guess from right at the beginning, it came out of the Advanced Queensland program. So out of that, there's a number of things that come out of that, but one of the things is their community digital champions. So I was nominated by one of my schools, and I got that. And as part of that community, there's a lot of events where there's opportunities to network with all the other digital champions. So, and as part of that network, we're encouraged to report and write about all the projects that we do. And then as part of that, something else came up, and then they asked if I wanted to participate, and of course I did. And so some of it has been organic, and others have been, well, as a result of this community and the communication and storytelling, they identify you as, you know, someone who can participate in in other programs. So it's just, I guess, me making an effort to maintain relationships with all the people in the network, and sharing the stories as we deliver projects that contribute to that.
Cool. Any further questions?
Yeah, thanks for the talk. I was just going to ask, where do you see it going from here? Like, is the grant ongoing, or?
Yeah, there's different departments with different buckets of money. So at this stage, I'm sure you're all aware, like digital literacy education is such a hot topic. So there's a lot of money going in this space. So I'm not sure how long that'll last. I'd like to think that it's ongoing, but I think especially with the full implementation of digital technologies in Queensland, I don't know what the timeframes are for everywhere else. Like, there needs to be a lot of support for that implementation to happen at ground level, because it's not easy. It's not just a bolt-on subject. It has to be fully integrated into the existing subjects. As you can see, the solar system one was a science project, and then there was an English project. It's not just learning coding for coding's sake. It's embedded into a subject area. So in some ways, you know, it's easy. In other ways, it's not very easy. So there needs to be ongoing support. Otherwise, it's just policy that won't make its way down. Yeah.
Do you have built into your acquittal some sort of sustainability after the grant?
Yeah, so we need to maintain communications with our contacts in the regional areas, and also collect, I guess, data on how their programs are going, how often they run it, their attendance, how they spread it further within their community. So yeah, I need to report back on the impacts of the grants after the event. Yeah. Is that what you asked?
Do you see yourself actually extending past that yourself by looking for other funding opportunities to improve sustainability?
Well, I guess I would like to keep doing it. I guess it's a question of how much can it, you know, because I guess we are a business and I still have to keep paying for my staff to go out there. Yeah, I think we'll keep trying our best, but I don't know how far we can keep it going. Yeah.
Okay, if there are any further questions, thank you once again, Emily. Great talk.
Thank you.
And that will be the lunch break now, and we will be back here afterwards.